October 21st, 1966. A sleepy Welsh village named Aberfan lies hushed beneath a gray dawn. At 9:13 a.m., the earth itself betrays it. A colliery spoil tip, swollen with rain, collapses in a roar of black sludge. It swallows a Pantglas Junior School whole. 144 lives vanish, 116 of them children, their voices silenced beneath the weight of coal waste. The nation mourns, the National Coal Board shrugs off blame, but amid the grief, whispers begin to surface. Whispers of dreams, of warnings, a girl who saw the blackness coming, a boy who drew the end, a woman miles away who felt it in her bones. Could this tragedy have been foreseen? Could it have been stopped? Today we step into a strange corner of history, a tale of two men who dared to ask that question in the shadowy experiment they built to chase the impossible. This is the story of the Premonitions Bureau.
You are now entering the realm of the freaky deaky, an unsuspecting stop at the crossroads of fantasy and reality, where the frayed edges of make-believe seep into this cookie-cutter white picket world you've been led to believe is far from extraordinary. What you're about to hear are true stories.
Alleged true stories.
Christian, just... okay? Tales of the strange and inexplicable thought only to exist in film and folklore. Although difficult to accept, we do not know everything about this reality. About time or space, what lies beneath the ocean's depths. And try though we might, the unchanging truth remains. There are some things we legitimately cannot explain logically.
Our story begins not in Aberfan, but in the mind of a man haunted by the edges of human experience.
Did you want to lead into the episode first, or?
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I was wondering, I was like, is this more of the intro? Wow, very in-depth. And then I realized, I was like, oh, he's just going with the episode now. Interesting, I should probably
It's been a few weeks.
It's been a while. It's been a while? Yeah, it's been literally 5 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't think people understand, and I don't even think you fully understand exactly how many times I thought about literally just being like, that last episode was the last one. Like, just over the course of the 5 weeks, because it was finally like when I had all that time to myself, I was like, oh, wow, I actually read and I actually enjoy my life. And I actually, it wasn't like a constant, there's constantly something going on. And so literally, there's maybe a couple people out there that talked me out of it, but I was literally going to be like, I think that might just be the show. I think it might just be over. And then be like, oh, or maybe cut back and do a couple episodes. But yeah, it was a wild 5 weeks, man. I got to be honest with you.
I feel like you didn't realize I was here half that time watching you struggle and figure things out.
Sure. Yeah. No, there was like, honestly, I was like, maybe the paranormal thing is great, but it's almost like played out now. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm not going to convince you that ghosts are real ever, Christian. I've come to that conclusion. And I'm like, that's fine. Maybe we just talk about other things too, like we've kind of dabbled with some of the wild government stuff, not really conspiracies, but just like experimentation and stuff. And I don't know, maybe we do that. But I was like, maybe we cut back the paranormal stuff to 2 times a month and then just launch a separate podcast where we talk about different things, but it comes out on the opposing 2 weeks of the paranormal one. And then I was like, well, it's time maybe to release a religious podcast, and we could just release that as well. And so all this was going on in the span of 5 weeks. And there was multiple times in the middle of it, I was like, or maybe I just don't do any of this, and maybe I just have something else in my life. But here we are. And over the past, 48 hours or whatever, as we grew closer to recording, I was like, you know what? Maybe it's not so much the podcast, it's the drive. And so if you implement some of that drive back into it and you try to really figure things out, maybe it reignites that fire,
Sometimes you just got to not put so much pressure on yourself.
Yeah, that's hard to do though for someone that has,
well, like when we record and you have to have it done by the end of that day.
Most of the time. And no, you know why I do that? For the free time after it. Because I'm like, we recorded it for the next couple of weeks. I got everything edited within 24 hours. That means I don't have to worry about this until X, Y, or Z. But the truth is, I do have to worry about it because I still have to design the covers, and I still have to post on social medias, and I still have to upload videos and export videos. And so I think it's all done. And that's where it gets you, is you're like, oh, I have the free time. And I'm like, oh, wait, I got to do this. And so there really is no escaping it. And with most shows, they'll grow to a point and then they'll kind of pawn that off on someone else. But we haven't had that luxury.
Not yet.
And so I got to the point where I'm just like, I think I just need to cut back. I need to cut back on a lot of things with this show. I've been trying to force growth in all the wrong areas for quite some time now. And I think it really just, it needs to expand more than it needs to actually grow, if that makes sense. Maybe expand in the content with beyond just growing in the show When the content's better, people will show up, unless we talk about the Bible, in which case they're not going to show up for that, Christian. We learned that in the comments a month ago.
I'm always up for religious stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you knock me for my religious views, but I know a lot about religion.
Sure, to an extent. But I don't also say...
I won't say I know it from a faithful point of view, but I understand. Yes. I understand the history. Yeah. I study the stuff. I just don't do it from a point of view of faith.
Sure. I'm not even saying that's 100% accurate. I understand that you believe that, but we're not going to dive into that so much. I'm going to say on that subject that I have, or maybe, no, we'll talk about that afterwards.
Yeah, I was at the end. I was saying more if we ever do religious stuff.
Yeah, and I'll lean into that a bit more at the end. If
can I let you know though?
Mind. Yes.
The point of if we do that, your point shouldn't be to convert me.
It's not.
Because I don't think that's part of me.
No, it's literally not. And the beautiful thing about me taking an apologetics class is that it has taught me not so much more about the Gospels or the Christianity. It has taught me about how to deliver that message. And that is the one thing that I have always struggled with because your boy is a hothead and I get aggressive.
You do.
So I'm going to try to be as kind as I can. And it might not work all the time. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's probably not going to. But
just remember, if I ever say anything, I'm not attacking religion.
You don't need to attack it.
I'm just saying, because there's been a couple times where, and it's not too much with me, but it's not an attack.
Sure. No, so that's fine. And how'd you like that, Dominique, huh?
So don't come at me, bro.
You like that? You like the way you're talking about it right now, right early in the episode? More on that later.
Also, I'm probably not going to believe in ghosts the way you want me to.
Yes. What a shocker.
This subject, I totally believe.
Great segue, Christian. Thank you. I was wondering how we're going to get back into it. I'm not even going to tell people to follow us on social media because I don't care.
I do. Follow us on social media and tell your friends.
There you go.
Keep telling us good things. Those of you guys on Facebook.
And those of you guys on YouTube, hey, you know what? No, I'm not going to. I was going to say it, Christian. I'm not going to. It's fine.
I haven't even had time lately to check on the YouTube stuff.
Me either. I feel bad because I've neglected like 5,000 comments.
The last couple of weeks have been crazy. Not you're kind of crazy because you have a toddler. Anything else you want to say before I get rolling?
No, I think you're all set, man. I think we got it off my chest there. So after the outro, I'll discuss a little bit more on the religious thing.
Can you not be angry about it, though?
It's about producing a show, not so much like actually fighting you for Christianity. Christian, that's fine.
You're going to have to explain to me at the end what we're talking about here.
That was the plan. I feel like I've said that a few times now.
No, that's the first time I understood it that way.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time that's happened, is it?
I mean, I'm not saying I understand everything perfectly.
Wow. And here we go.
Our story begins not in Aberfan, but in the mind of a man haunted by the edges of human experience.
Sounds like a David Bowie lyric.
Dr. John Barker was 42 years old in 1966, a psychiatrist at Shelton Hospital in Shropshire, England, with a mop of dark hair and a quiet intensity.
Feels a little judgy with the mop reference, but it's fine.
Yeah. To his patients, he was a healer, probing the depths of troubled minds. But to those who knew him best, Barker was something else, a seeker, a man drawn to the unexplained. He'd been a member of the Society of Psychical Research for years.
Shout out to the Enfield poltergeist we were just doing, you know?
Oh, yeah. Studying tales of ghosts, telepathy, and the thin veil between life and death. At the time of Aberfan, he was writing a book, Scared to Death, exploring whether fear itself could kill. He believed it could, and when news of the disaster broke, Barker felt he couldn't ignore.
Can't you scare certain animals to death?
I feel like you can.
Like bunnies or something like that?
And birds.
Yeah. So it makes sense. You could do it to humans if you had the right.
I mean, some people seem to die. You could have a heart attack, but I don't think he died before he got to release the book, but basically people
broke into his house and released it anyway.
Do you remember, here's an example of the type of stuff he was studying. You remember that one story of that guy that went out with his friends and there was a witch? I think it was in Seattle or in Washington. He went out to dinner and with a group of friends and somebody showed up that said that they were a witch. Yeah. And then they found him dead like the next day and he'd been...
to be honest with you, that actually sounds like a story I've heard a million times at this point after doing this podcast.
I think we've talked about it on this podcast.
So but maybe that's it then.
And they found him dead because he was convinced she'd cursed him.
That does sound really familiar now.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing he's looking into is like stuff where you think you're going to die, so you die.
The power of the mind.
Yeah, like some guy thought he was going to die on a certain date. He died on that date later on.
That happens.
So we'll get back to Aberfan. After the collapse, Barker drove to Aberfan. The village was a wound, streets caked in black mud and slurry, the air thick with sorrow. He walked among the... What?
Bummer.
Oh, yeah, total bummer. He walked among the wreckage, past the shattered schoolhouse, listening to the survivors. What he heard stopped him cold. A 10-year-old girl, Earl May Jones, had told her mother of a dream the day before, and the dream was her school was gone, buried under something black. She died in the landslide. 8-year-old Paul Davies had sketched a hillside with figures digging, the words "the end" scratched beneath it.
Why it got to be that ominous, you know?
It's a premonition.
The end? You got to add that in there?
Well, like, and I've heard about this.
That's like horror movie level stuff, man. You're not trying to do that.
Well,
No.
also, the mother
That's too
didn't
much.
find this until,
After the end.
after,
Poetic, really.
well,
There's some sadness.
tragically poetic.
Yeah.
Little Paul Davies died in that school.
I didn't know him, but I'm sure he was a great lad.
Yeah.
I said lad because of location, obviously.
I get it, man.
Thank you.
Kathleen Middleton, a music teacher in London, woke that morning choking as if the walls were closing in. And this was hours before the tip gave way. And the tip, just really quick, I don't know if everybody knows about coal mining, but basically this coal mine had been around since probably the late 1800s, I think. And so they get the coal out, and then the waste, they just would pile up, and they call that a tip. And they just keep piling it up.
Probably due to its shape.
Yeah. And then, so that's what collapsed in this case.
How
And
big was this thing?
It was pretty big. I
mean, to like take out a school? Come on, that's got to be a pretty big tip.
Let's put it this way. It was up on a hill above the town, pretty tall tip,
Okay.
over stacked or piled over a natural water spring.
Hmm.
And we're in England, it rains a lot. So with the rain and being over a water spring, the water, like it gave out beneath it.
Yeah.
And they were getting to the point where they were going to have to move to another spot. This was the 7th one, I think, the 7th tip.
Wow.
They'd been piling it up over the years.
Control your tips,
Yeah.
everyone, please.
I mean,
I'm begging you.
Saves you money in the end.
Wow.
Or
Could be
doctor's
used in
visit.
So many, so many use cases. You're right.
Yep. So Kathleen Middleton, we'll call her Miss Middleton for the rest of the episode because that's what she liked to go by. She taught piano and ballet in London. She woke up with this premonition of choking, and then hours later is when this actually happened.
She got choked.
The tips slid.
Gotcha. See,
And-
I was thinking we were like, I forgot this was about a specific event in time. I thought everyone was just having their own weird.
Yeah.
It's fine, guys. I'll catch up.
And Aberfan, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, is in Wales. So part of England, but in Wales. So not really.
Similar to dolphins, but these ones primarily larger.
No. Closer to the Prince of Wales, which
Didn't-
used to be Charles.
Hey, cool.
Now it's one of his sons.
Nobody cares.
Good to dust that bad boy off, huh?
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
That song actually recently went on to one of my playlists.
Stained. It's been a while. Great. It's a great song. Got me through like 2003 or something. I don't know when it was, but I felt it when it came out.
That same playlist has Fell on Black Days, too. It's not the most uplifting. It's got a lot of Alice in Chains.
Yeah, it's not the best song either. It's fine. You guys don't even know how much music sucks.
Fell on Black Days is an awesome song.
Said the guy who thinks it's an awesome song.
Yep.
Gotcha.
I'm sure somebody listening will agree.
Oh, everyone loves your music choices, Christian. They just rave about them constantly. It's usually, apologies in advance, the elder crowd, if I may word it in that sense.
Elder is a little bit of a reach. I don't
Okay, the people that are more likely to break a hip if they fall over. How's
no,
that?
not that either.
The people that really keep 3 or 4 lukewarm butterscotch candies in their pockets on any given day.
The people with good taste born before 1990. How's
That's
that?
another descriptive word or phrase for it. Well done, Christian. You did it.
Okay. Anyway, Dr. Barker wasn't alone in his fascination. This is where we get Peter Fairley. He's 43, sharp-eyed and ambitious, a science editor at London's Evening Standard. Fairley was a journalist with a nose for the unusual, a man who'd covered moon landings and nuclear breakthroughs. He'd met Barker through their shared interest in the paranormal, and when the doctor pitched the idea over a crackling phone line, Fairley listened.
Oh.
What if premonitions weren't flukes? What if they could be collected, studied, and used to warn of disasters before they struck? Fairley saw the headline potential. Barker saw a mission. Together they hatched a plan, a bureau to gather visions from the public, a net cast into the unknown. In early 1967, the British Premonitions Bureau was born.
Dun, 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 dun.
Now, what originally caught me about this, I heard it on a podcast,
Classic.
and then I bought the book,
Wow.
which I should give a shout out here. But the fact that somebody put together a Premonitions Bureau in 1967, 68. I'd never heard of this.
Yeah.
And I've been paying attention to this stuff since
before, I mean, honestly, time itself.
Since just a little while after that.
Oh, yeah.
So the Premonitions Bureau is written by Sam Knight. And I used a lot of the book as a resource, so I want to throw that out there.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah. The Bureau wasn't a grand institution, no marble halls or secret laboratories.
Okay.
Is that how they would say it in England?
That's how Dexter from Dexter's Lab would say it.
Hi, Dexter's cool.
Are we talking about the same Dexter? I just want
I'm
to
not talking about the serial killer.
Okay,
I'm
thank
talking
you.
about the cartoon.
With the way you say Dexter's cool, I'm like,
That's not cool. I mean, that was a good show, but I don't like serial killers.
oh, okay. Now we're talking about the opposite show both times. I asked you if it was about Dexter the show, and you said no, the cartoon. And then I started talking about the cartoon, and then you answered as if I was talking about the show. Do you understand that we're not on the same page with this Dexter bit at all? And so we need to hop off. Let's get back to it. We're done with Dexter. It's fine.
See you later, Dexter. We'll come back to you sometime. Okay. It was a makeshift operation run from Fairley's newsroom in Barker's cluttered hospital office. They announced it in the Evening Standard, which was a bold call to action. And this is what they said. Have you foreseen disaster? Contact us. The response was immediate. Letters poured in, hundreds at first, then nearly 1,000 over the next year and a half. Each was routed to Jennifer Preston, Fairley's assistant, a woman with a calm voice and a meticulous hand. She would become the Bureau's gatekeeper.
I'm sorry. What is the significance of how meticulous her hand is?
Because she's keeping track of everything, and doctors.
And she does that with her hands? Is that what they're...
Well, I think she did a lot of note-taking and stuff.
Okay.
So when people would call, she would talk to them and take down notes
Gotcha.
and then pass it on.
That makes more sense. Honestly, like who's like, yeah, but what do her hands look like?
Well, and maybe that's a phrasing that was used back in the day before people in those kind of jobs had computers. So everything was written and...
You just picture a guy in a trench coat with one of those caps on a rainy black and white Friday afternoon in a detective office speaking in that accent. Should have just said private eye, but I really went into detail with that. I apologize.
It happens, man.
She had a meticulous hand. No.
Oh, that is a good voice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Podcast noir right there.
That was the idea.
She logged every submission, date, time, details, and a score. How unusual, how precise, how close to the event. The predictions ranged from mundane to chilling. Train wrecks, floods, assassinations. Most were vague, many were wrong, but a few made the hair on Barker's neck stand up. The hair on his head stood back because he was going bald.
Wow.
Yeah.
It comes for all of us at some point, Christian. I'm watching it happen to my father right now, which gives me very little hope.
I think I'm just going to be gray.
Yeah. See, hopefully my son gets that and not the, horseshoe head. Sorry, Dad, if you're listening. He shaves it down now. I think it's a sore subject.
It would be for me, too.
Anyway, back to meticulous hands.
Okay, there we go. Got my ass chewed.
Wow. What a turn of events.
So we're going to get into a little bit of something.
Wow. Very mysterious.
Yeah.
And exciting.
I want to set the mood. Picture this.
I'm trying.
A cramped London office. Late 1967. The desk is buried under envelopes. The air thick with cigarette smoke, which is kind of crazy to remember that people used to be able to smoke at work.
That sounds like the bee's knees. I mean, that's probably how a lot of people died. But just like walking into offices filled with cigarette smoke, and you're like, yeah, very important business going on in here, huh, fellas?
It sounds like you're a person who's never experienced the putrid smell of other people's cigarettes at work. When it's allowed.
Oh.
Your whole life, it's been, and especially because you were in California, it was banned.
No, I remember when cigarettes were banned from airplanes.
I don't.
Don't I? Wasn't that was past, I was born in 90. That was past that, right?
I feel like it was before that.
I feel like you could smoke cigarettes in airplanes for a lot longer than people remember.
Internationally, maybe.
I don't know. Someone will correct me and probably be...
I never paid attention because I didn't have to smoke.
Well, aren't you better than the rest of us, Christian, that thought it would look cool and exciting?
I almost took it up just to get all the extra breaks.
Wow, that's what people that don't smoke say all the time. It's not fair. They get to go smoke. Hey, be cooler, all right? Light one up and come outside and talk about the government like the rest of us.
Be cooler. Get lung cancer and lose your teeth.
Yeah, but a lot of that's genetic. I don't think people fully grasp that. I had a coworker on a cigarette break tell me once, his parents or their grandparents or whatever, like everyone in their family line pretty much smoked from the age of 12, like 2 packs a day. Not a single one of them. Nothing ever happened,
My stepmother, who did not smoke, died of lung cancer.
Comes for all of us.
And my dad was a heavy smoker.
True.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not a great habit. Look, guys, it's not a great habit, honestly.
Don't do it. There's other options.
It's the worst. And it's hard to quit unless you're very determined.
Okay, so we're picturing Jennifer Preston.
I'm sorry. Also to mention that entire bit was sponsored by Dare.
Dare is not cigarettes.
What's the cigarette one that used to come to like elementary schools? Didn't they tell you not to smoke? I'm pretty sure it was cigarettes also. I'm pretty sure they worked cigarettes into it. Yeah, whatever. If they didn't, this got off the rails.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Next thing you know, McGruff the crime dog is going to show up.
See, when
here.
you do episodes, I get to relax and just hit this pen a couple times and just be like, how can I fuck this up? You know?
Luckily, I have more patience than you.
Sometimes.
Have you seen me not patient?
How many years do I know you? Like 7 now? 8, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've probably more than that, right? Probably 8. Yeah, I've seen you not patient maybe like 1 or 2, maybe 1 or 2 times.
Yeah.
It's probably closer to 1.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
And even when I'm not patient, I can hide it a lot of times.
Yeah, this time you couldn't for sure. But
What happened?
I got to think about it. I know for sure it was embedded in my memory. But I was like, again, you weren't like lashing out or anything because it's you. Like, but you could just tell, be like, you could see it. There's like a little twitch there, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It's the
I can feel
psychotic
it.
twitch.
Yeah.
Not in your case, but that's what the psychos do as well.
Well, hopefully, I'm not one of them.
That's to be determined.
Okay, so Jennifer Preston, the secretary, opens a letter, her brow furrowing. It's from a woman named Kathleen Middleton, which we've mentioned earlier, but we'll call her, again, Miss Middleton. She had a lot of cats. She had a roommate that used to be an ex-lover, but she called him her lodger. And he basically was with her until the end. People back in the day were weird, especially cat ladies. Nothing against cat ladies, but their world is...
Teresa and I about to come for you right now, Christian. All right, you best...
No, it's a serious cat lady, especially one in their 50s and above, live a different lifestyle.
I believe that cat ladies are single-handedly responsible for a lot of like the citizen journalism.
I don't knock people that have...
You know, they solve crimes, all right?
Yeah,
Cat people.
I'm not going to knock people that have like cats and dogs.
How do you feel about field mice?
I've had mice before.
Wow.
And
didn't expect to hear that. Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing special about them. They don't even like you. They don't even pretend. Sometimes a cat pretends to like you.
Now you're just lying. They're hungry, Christian.
That's true.
Take them to the kitchen, give them their food.
True. I almost brought a dog home today.
Wow.
One showed up at the store. Lost.
This is like ADHD, the podcast,
yeah,
you know?
I'm sorry. Moving on.
That actually would be a great podcast. Maybe that's what we do. More on that later.
Oh, shit.
It's like any topic under the sun, just ADHD nonstop, just back and...
We'd have to have a stuffed squirrel.
Yeah, you start talking about a stuffed squirrel and you end up talking about like planes that are crashing all over the world, you know?
Oh, let's not. Okay, so Middleton's no stranger. She's written before, and her words carry weight. So she was a regular contributor to the Premonition Bureau.
Terrific.
She's 54. We already told you she's a music teacher, and she has a soft face, according to the store or to the people talking about it. I'm not familiar with London, having not been there, but she lives in North London.
Okay.
She's not a psychic. She's not a fortune teller. Just a woman who feels things others don't because of her lodger. This time, she writes of a spacecraft tumbling from the sky, a single cosmonaut inside. The date she lists is April 23rd, 1967. 4 days later, the news breaks. Soyuz 1, a Soviet space mission, crashes to Earth. Cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov is dead, his parachute tangled, his craft a fireball. Middleton's letter sits on the desk, dated before the disaster. Barker stares at it, his hands trembling, wondering, coincidence or proof? So I feel like I should tell you a little bit more about Miss Middleton.
Sounds like you're really dying to, so sure.
Yeah. As like I told you earlier, she was a piano and ballet teacher that mostly worked with kids.
Yeah.
She said when they got to become teenagers and started getting other interests, she'd kind of kick them out because they just weren't paying attention.
Mm.
She shared a house with her mother, and that's where she taught the kids. She called her pupils the Mary Carltons.
Her pupils?
Yeah. And I don't know what a Mary Carlton is.
But it doesn't sound great.
I think maybe it's some English performing. I don't know, man.
Watch back the best thing ever.
Yeah.
I'm like, that doesn't sound good at all.
I mean, it's a bunch of kids putting on a dance performance or
Yeah, so
a
it can't be that
recital.
great.
It's great for the parents of that child, but probably sounds hideous to most people.
Yeah, not sure I'd just go in and watch one of those.
Yeah. You would if Atlas was in it.
I would.
She was staged productions for him, and her premonitions began long before Aberfan. When Miss Middleton was 7 years old and was watching her mother frying eggs one winter day,
Wow.
she says that after about 2 minutes and without warning, the egg lifted itself up. It rose up and up until it almost touched the ceiling. And she wrote this in her memoir, which she self-published in 1989. Her mother was worried about it at the time and went to a fortune teller who told her this meant someone close to them would die. I have never heard that eggs floating, an owl, seen an owl. We've talked about that. I've never heard
Tall
about
man in black with a sickle or something.
Yeah, I've never heard of eggs floating up to the ceiling is a harbinger of death. It wasn't long before her mother's best friend unexpectedly passed away. She had recently been married and was buried in her wedding dress. So sad. I'm sorry if I sounded like it wasn't sad.
Were you worried about the cadence and when she said that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did come off a little dry. Like, oh, so sad. Oh, so sad. Oh, that's the worst. That's what you sounded like. No, just kidding. It sounded fine.
You get really giggly when I read. Maybe that's the problem. I haven't been reading.
No, because I'm a fidgety guy, so I'm just over here touching things and pushing buttons and moving things around. Yeah. So I get really, again, it's ADHD type. It's ADHD season when I'm not on the script,
Did I already? Oh, I'm going to read it again. I don't know if I remember. Premonitions would follow Miss Middleton for her entire life. She spent time in the States when she was young, but the financial situation of her parents caused them to move back to England with creditors on their heels. And this is where we get an example of another premonitions. It is a Saturday night in England in March of 1941. World War II is raging and the Blitz had started the previous autumn. She was at home getting ready to go to a St. Patrick's Day celebration at Prince's Dance Hall. I didn't know he was even alive back then, but
wow.
And that he had a dance hall. Anyway, air raid sirens had gone off, but the younger Miss Middleton was determined to go. A friend stopped by as she was getting ready. They talked about whether it was safe to go out when the Germans might drop bombs at any time. They decided it was too much fun to pass up. They headed out, and on the way, Miss Middleton had a strange sensation before grabbing her friend's arm and returning home. They played cards, and at 8:45, a German bomber was hit by anti-aircraft fire and dropped its payload over Palmer's Green. And Prince's Dance Hall, of course, was packed because he was singing Let's Go Crazy.
Wow.
A 16-year-old girl named Wynne was there watching couples dance before her. She suddenly felt a gust of wind, and one of the walls disappeared. Everything was quiet for her momentarily. She would be pulled from the rubble, and when she went outside, the dead and injured were laid out. Only 2 in the dance hall had died, but outside a trolley had been struck. A fire went in to help and found all 43 passengers standing, sitting, and reading their papers. All were dead. And that is pretty much taken from the Premonitions Bureau book. I don't know how they were all standing and reading when they were dead, but...
Well, we don't know what happens after we die, Maybe we just stand and read.
That's just not like the image there.
Yeah, just...
I don't like it.
Not a great visual.
I don't want to walk into a bus and see a bunch of dead people standing and reading. I haven't been on many buses regularly since school.
It's a weird...
I don't know what to go.
Weird fact to drop there, but cool.
You threw me off a little bit there.
Happens.
So we're going to jump forward from World War II to October 20th, 1966. We discussed this a little bit earlier, but we'll go over it again. While staying at one of her parents' inherited properties, Kathleen, Miss Middleton, awoke with a sense of profound dread. Walls felt as though they were closing in. She gasped for air and choked on an overwhelming feeling of impending disasters. She shared her fears with her roommate/lover.
Wow. A little judgy, Christian.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but...
Sounds like you might.
Admit to it. I mean, it was late 60s. It was a lot different then.
Sure.
He tried to calm her, but Miss Middleton knew something terrible was coming. And then later that day, the unimaginable happened. The Aberfan disaster. We have another person that is part of the Premonition Bureau. His name is Alan Hencher. Hencher was 43, a telephone switchboard operator from Hornchurch, Essex. He had a slight build, thinning hair, and a nervous energy about him. He wasn't the type you'd peg as a seer. That's all I got to say about that one, but okay.
No, there was
I'm glad you laughed, though, because...
There was a line in there that if I cut it just right, is going to be just the perfect soundbite.
In November 1967, he wrote of a plane spiraling down, flames licking its wings, 123 souls aboard. Weeks later, a British Midland Airways flight crashed near Stockport, killing 126. So he was close, just 3 off. Barker called him in, sat him down. Hencher's voice shook as he described it. Not a dream, but a waking jolt, like a firm reel unspooling in his skull. He didn't want the gift, he said. It came anyway. Now, this guy, Hencher, when he would get these premonitions, he would get this like massive headache, like a migraine style headache.
Yeah.
So,
well, hey, maybe seeing the future is a little difficult.
yeah, that's what it sounded
Maybe it
like.
hurts the body a little bit. Nobody thought about that.
I mean, oh, you're kicking the carpet. I was like, why is that camera moving?
There's a rat in here.
The Bureau tracked these hits, 18 in all, out of 723 logged predictions. 12 came from Middleton and Hencher alone. Middleton foresaw Robert Kennedy's assassination in June of 1968, which is funny because I sent you that text last night and then I went and reread everything and decided to change some things around. And then I put that in there. I was like, that's weird. We were just talking about that.
Perhaps. Yeah.
So she made this prediction days before he was shot in a Los Angeles hotel. Hencher predicted a train derailment in Kent, eerily close to the Hither Green crash that killed 49 in November of 1967. Each success fueled Barker's hope. He imagined a system, warnings issued, life saved, but the misses piled up too. Hundreds of false alarms, vague ramblings, and dead ends. The Bureau couldn't act on them all, and time was running out. Any questions, comments so far?
No, okay. I have none.
I hope you'll be able to have a discussion about this when I get near at the end.
I don't know if that's going to be possible, Christian, and I'll tell you why. Because I haven't been following certain parts of it. I have lost myself in a train of thought, and then I'll come back like halfway through what you're saying, and I'm like, oh, yes, of course, the podcast we're recording. Damn it. So we'll see. I might have some wild questions at the end of this that are going to make very little sense.
It's a little unprofessional. I listened to you.
Oh,
with
I'm
rapt
unprofessional,
attention.
Christian.
Got my ass chewed.
Wow. Me. Trauma. You know?
By midnight. Demons are real. What was that one? Demons are real. I could get on board with that. Big shout out to Scott.
Wow. Quite the sentences you're pulling off.
That last one definitely was AI.
Sure. Yeah. I'll have it analyzed.
By mid-1968, Barker was fraying. The strain of his hospital work, the Bureau, it gnawed at him. He was thinner, paler, his eyes sunken.
Wow.
Barely kept the Evening Standard buzzing with updates, but the dream of prevention slipped away. Then came the twist that no one saw coming, not even Barker. Alan Hencher wrote again, his handwriting jagged. He saw a man collapsing, a doctor surrounded by white walls. Miss Middleton called Preston days later, her voice tight. She'd woken from a nightmare, Barker's face in it, lifeless. On August 21st, 1968, John Barker died. A heart attack, they said, at 44. Alone in his office, slumped over his desk. His own death foretold by the very people he'd sought to understand. The Bureau stuttered on for a few months, then dissolved. Fairly moved on, became a reporter, a space reporter that reported on
space,
like the NASA trip to the moon and everything. So he was pretty famous.
Oh, the trip to the moon, Chris? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to.
Yes, I believe that.
That would be hilarious, yeah. I don't even know what to believe anymore. It's fine. It probably happened.
Barely.
Probably not. Yeah, you know what? Who cares?
Barely pressed on. Preston filed the last letters. Middleton and Hencher faded into silence. So what are we left with? A stack of yellowing papers.
From all the cigarette smoke, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, so they used yellow paper a lot back then.
Ah, yes.
723 predictions, 18 hits, and a question that lingers like smoke. Was the Premonitions Bureau a breakthrough, a glimpse into the mind's hidden reach, or a fool's errand chasing shadows in the dark? Skeptics, not me in this case, say the successes were luck. Vague guesses stretched to fit the facts. Believers point to Middleton, to Hencher, and Barker's own end. Nearly 1,000 people reached out convinced they'd seen tomorrow. Most were wrong, but those few who weren't keep us wondering. Could disaster be stopped? And could Aberfan have been saved? The Bureau closed its doors, but the mystery never did.
Now, question regarding, like, what was the intended purpose of this? Like, are you trying to, because these people would have these dreams, right?
Dreams are just visions, or
okay, visions might be a little.
Not visions.
Or like, I know what you're saying. Like, I'm not trying to make any, but like visions, it might not be possible. But if you're in a dream, was the goal to somehow or get more information about the event, like to maybe start lucid dreaming and try to find what the date is, or what was the game plan? Like, because you could see things, but if you didn't know the exact day, then you can't stop it. It's going to happen.
From my understanding, they were trying to figure out how to be able to predict these things. So by taking these premonition or recording them and then, keeping track of them, paying attention if something happened, they might be able to unlock something that was maybe hidden in our minds that could predict this stuff.
Yeah, some Minority Report type stuff, but like
No, not like that. More like
isn't that what it'd be used for? Like, I mean, that's more crime, but like you're just having a premonition and then going and stopping that event.
I guess to a certain extent that would be the case. Excuse me.
Minority Reported.
But also, Minority Report was a very paranoid movie and story for good
and
reason.
It's coming true in a life near you pretty much at this point.
So
tech is getting pretty wild out there, Christian. It's not going to be long.
But these people in the Minority Report weren't tech. They were actually...
used as tech.
Yeah.
So,
but I think what Barker was trying to do was just trying to figure out a way to predict this stuff so that people could be saved and he could write books.
Well, that seems like he took the opposite of what he should have done. That's not going to work. His goal should have been to induce lucid dreaming to the people that dream about these crazy things.
But this was in the 60s. I think only like lucid dreaming. I don't even know if it was called lucid dreaming back then, but it was more of a hippie thing. So definitely,
just imagine like if that person was actually in the future, right? And if they had the ability to be like, "Oh, this is a dream. I'm going to look around for like a calendar or like a newspaper with the date on it or something like that," so you can kind of like be like, "Oh, we can actually stop this." If you're just looking into people that can tell the future, you're never going to be able to predict it.
Well, also you got to remember it's a long time ago. People think a lot differently about like what you just did by going through these different scenarios and how you could figure out the dates.
Sure.
Maybe it wasn't quite thought out that way because...
Well, I mean, my idea to be honest, is about as plausible as the rest of them. Like that's a pretty insane take if you're like, we're going to teach people a lucid dream. But it is something that would actually get an answer for what you need, instead of just being like, oh, well, these people can tell the future, so now we can predict. Like, that's not how it works, dude. You need time. Time is the important element there. You need exact date and time.
Well, I threw a little bit more information in here. There's some other famous people that have had premonitions, supposedly.
Yes.
One was Nostradamus.
Of course. We didn't we do an episode on him?
I feel like we've talked about him.
It was the predictions episode in 2023.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a while ago.
That was a while ago, Christian.
Also, the Oracle of Delphi. Are you familiar with them?
Yes. I'm not familiar with what they do, but I'm familiar with them.
You've heard of them?
Yes.
They've been you probably read about them in school. But basically, well, I have a little blurb here about them. I think the Oracle of Delphi was in the movie 300 also. That's who Leonidas went to see before he went off to war.
Wow. Important.
Not that 300 is completely historically accurate.
Are you kidding me? Yes, it is. No.
I actually listened to a podcast about not the 300, but Xerxes, the Persian king that Leonidas went against yesterday. So anyway.
You live a very exciting life, Christian.
No, I love
We're
that
all
stuff.
jealous.
So we're back in, to figure out, to talk about the Oracle of Delphi, you'd go back to 400 BC, basically, around that time period.
Sure.
So travelers desperate for guidance go up the stone steps to the Temple of Apollo in Delphi. So a woman sits upon a sacred tripod, which is not like the tripods we have here, I guess, but
that would be pretty painful to sit upon if you think about it, Christian.
Some people are kinky. Got my ass chewed. I don't know if that's what it would be, but
chewed up.
Yeah. So anyway, this woman sits upon a sacred tripod, her body swaying as intoxicating vapors rise from the earth. She is the Pythia, the Oracle of Delphi, Greece's most revered seers. Kings and generals kneel before her, hanging on her cryptic words, believing she glimpses the tide of fate itself. We could go into what caused these oracles to be able to see the stuff they did at another time. That's a completely different episode, but
yes, it is.
They're probably the most famous as far as premonitions go, and most people or most skeptics would say that they're just making crap up, or they're high on I think it was volcanic vapors or something that came up from where they were at.
Hell yeah.
Stuff like that. But I think now we should have another premonitions bureau. You wouldn't even need a secretary. You just use AI to collect everything, and AI could probably put some patterns together we might not see.
Yeah, I don't know if we're quite there yet.
But also, they only had I think I said 1,700 predictions.
Yeah.
That's not very many. They were in business for a little while. I'm sure they had more, but some of them were, sometimes when people tell you what they think is going to happen, you're like, I don't know what you're thinking. But
you're wrong.
Yeah.
So glad we cleared that up. I don't know, man.
Another famous person that kind of falls into this is somebody you would recognize, Edgar Cayce.
Okay. Not really. We're bottom of the barrel famous people at this point.
Edgar Cayce is one of the most famous in our field.
Again, our field is at the bottom of the famous barrel, Christian. It's not Leonardo DiCaprio out here, solving mysteries with his mind.
Or with his 24-year-old.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Haunted. They got him.
So I don't know. Do you think that something like that could work? Do you think people see premonitions?
Yes.
Do you think it was a waste of time for the doctor to try to and this newspaper man to try to put something together?
It was a waste of time to try to have the absolute gall to think that you could predict the future. I believe that people see, I personally feel like I have seen, or I've had premonition dreams, mundane things. No one's dying or anything like that. But they come true at a later event. A year later, you're doing something and you're like, well, hold on just a second. I have seen every single frame of this movie before. And it happened, and mine are between 10 to 10 seconds, a minute of just everywhere I look, everything is exactly the way I saw it. But it's never anything crazy. I've had one or two premonitions where I knew people were going to die at certain ages. It was within me. When I met these people, I just knew. I was like, there's always this weird thing that I was like, that person's going to die at this age. And then it happened. So that premonitions, people have this shit. I don't know how it works.
But also that could have been a coincidence.
See,
that's the problem with some of them.
That's where we draw the line on that.
Well, no.
I don't think it is.
Maybe it's not, but it's hard to tell.
When this many people do it, when this many people have these things happen, and that's like milk toast. Some of these people saw actual crazy things take place and then witnessed it happen on the news or something like that. So that's some extreme cases. And I do think that maybe they're warnings, everyone talks about the Mothman and stuff like that, how that was this harbinger of doom. And I think maybe sometimes we get chances to stop things or to at least be aware that something's going to happen. Maybe not stop, but
here's the problem
inform,
with when you stop it, you never know you stopped it in a lot of cases.
Yeah, because maybe that's what is actually what caused it to happen in the first place. You stopping it, and then 2 years later, what the actual premonition was happens. It's a horror movie. I'm telling you, man. It's pretty crazy. But see, that's what you deal with when you try to intervene with almost the divine, right? This crazy whatever it is out there.
But these people aren't necessarily trying to do this. A lot of these people, when they tell you about it, this is just something that all of a sudden they could do.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the people that are at this bureau.
I think it was a good idea, a little early to be able to.
You don't think that's a little too much power, a little too much?
If you could figure it out.
Yeah, because who's to say that they figure out and then everything's kosher after that? You know what I mean?
There's humans involved, so there's never
that's
never
the thing.
good things.
That's the thing. And so someone down the line is going to use that ability for their own personal gain.
Or somebody down the line's been using that ability since that time period. Because this is pretty close to the same time period that we were doing remote viewing a few years after.
That's what I'm saying, man. I don't know. You can never trust the people doing these experiments. That's what it boils down to.
Well, I don't know if trust
sounds fascinating, right? But you just can't trust it. You can't.
Well, and I think that's the thing. Sometimes we humans are really guilty of trusting people. We've spent maybe the last 40, 50 years trusting people on TV.
And it turns out that was a mistake.
It was.
So, yeah.
Or people in positions of power and, we trust these. And it's not as bad now because nobody trusts anybody.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's a better thing or not. I think in this case it is.
In this case, it's actually kind of worse.
But in the past, we trusted everything that came out of a superior's mouth, whether it's a politician, a star, a newscaster, a boss, but probably since the 70s and 80s, that's not the case. We don't trust anybody, which creates different problems. And maybe if we had, maybe premonition's not the way to go, but if we could break that code, we could figure out how to better communicate. or understand the environment, whether it's a spiritual environment around us that we're missing or a supernatural environment or just some kind of consciousness that
we're just some ethereal fog.
Yeah.
That we tap into with our mind's eye.
That could be. I mean,
you never know, Christian. You never truly know.
We'll have another episode in the near future, I think, that'll deal with something along these lines, not premonitions, but just your consciousness being able to understand and go other places, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's what these people were, because if you listen to somebody that makes a prediction, like say a Miss Middleton or a Hetcher in this group, sometimes they're pretty spot on. You know, it may be easy. A skeptic will say, well, they're just throwing things out there, and then eventually it'll become real. Like that's what a lot of people say about Nostradamus. His words are so vague that any prediction could become true if you read it a certain way. And I don't think that's quite the case.
Yeah, that feels like too easy. You know, that's like low hanging fruit. Yeah,
It's just,
it could happen eventually.
well, it's like your brain creating itself or being created in the universe.
Sure.
You know, it could
I
happen.
love when you bring that up. It's my favorite.
Well, it could happen based on statistics, but
it's not going
that's a
to.
stupid statistic, and none of us are going to live long enough for that to have a chance to happen.
And it's actually never going to happen because it's physically impossible.
But you can't prove it's impossible because statistics say that it could happen.
One if you have common sense.
I mean, maybe, but
the numbers don't matter if you have common sense. You can't. It just doesn't pop out there unless there's an almighty. Sorry, oops a daisy has to be God.
I mean, planets just were created out of other things.
Here we go.
I'm just baiting you. Moving on anyway.
Yeah.
Back to the Premonitions Bureau.
Sure.
I do believe that people can see things. I don't understand how. I have opinions and thoughts.
Have you've never experienced something like that? Like in dreams, like where it feels like you're like, wait a second, didn't I dream this once?
No. But
Really?
also you got to remember, if I was to say, oh, I had a dream about this, did I predict the future? I'm like, no, this is just a weird coincidence.
Yeah.
Or my memory's wrong.
Sure.
Because my memory, if I had a dream when I was, say, 20, and all of a sudden it happened tomorrow, I'd be like, I'm not sure I remember that correctly. So
you don't think something like seeing the future would maybe be burned in a little deeper than an
I think it would have
memory?
to be a future, like you say, where you look around at dates and stuff. You know, where I look for the little details that would convince me that I'm seeing something and it's just not a random thing that I'm creating a pattern around.
Sure. Because that's what our brain loves to do is create patterns.
That's why we are alive.
That's absolutely correct, Christian. You're right.
So, but it'll trick us sometimes.
Yeah, why not? Hey, trick us.
And sometimes it tricks us in bad ways, not necessarily you or me. I haven't created any, or I haven't committed any acts of violence based on what my patterns tell me.
My patterns don't control me. Except that's exactly what they are. So, yeah. I don't know.
Except for that time that Byrne was acting really crazy on the hockey rink and I made him so mad he threw his equipment at me in the middle of a game.
He took his equipment off of him.
Well, he took his gloves. He threw his stick, then his gloves, and then his helmet and said, I'm never playing here again.
Wow.
And then I saw him there the next week.
Yeah, people don't know this about you, but you're a little instigator, right?
Yeah. When it comes to hockey.
Just on the ice, yeah, for sure.
But I do know to shut up in other instances. Because,
you're like, I can get my ass beat right now.
Yeah, or just cause a headache I don't want to deal with.
Classic.
So,
as opposed to headaches we love to deal with.
Yeah, because I've had hockey equipment thrown at me in the middle of a game more than once.
Yeah, the fellas love you, Christian. It is hard to deny, but that's fine. Was that all you had?
I think so. I mean, we could talk more about it. I just thought it was a fascinating thing, and
it is.
I wish it had been closer to our time so we'd have more information on it, and that maybe like the doctor dying really kept it from going. I think if they would have stuck with it, they might have come to a place where maybe they couldn't have predicted things, but they would have maybe understood why certain people can predict these things. Like why can't I predict things? Why can't I see that?
What if you can, but you just don't know it? You know what I mean?
I don't know. But I do.
Like you don't believe it enough and you don't think it's even possible. So you could be witnessing crazy things and then you just don't pay attention to them, you know?
Well, I would like to pay attention to them because my portfolio would be a little bit better right now.
Hey,
I've had a rough couple weeks.
agreed.
Not as rough as you, but.
Oh, yeah. Not as rough as me, but a couple, you know what? By the time this episode comes out, maybe that's all turned around or maybe it's even worse. Isn't that something to look forward to?
Well,
What a treat. Christian, you're almost, why?
If-
It's fine.
if I can put some money aside, it'll be okay. Because when
Yeah.
it gets worse, then I can suffer and hopefully have something. Either way. So I can't predict shit.
Yeah.
Maybe I should pay more attention, but there's too much going on in the world. And sometimes I just need to veg.
Sometimes?
You'll get to vegging again in a few years.
Oh, when I get a break again?
Yeah.
Next time
when
we're 8 episodes ahead and I can just...
No, when your child's a little older.
Yeah. Perhaps.
But also pretty soon he's going to be able to go hang out with me all day or something. Who knows?
Or all night,
Yeah.
You're going home with Grandpa for the evening. Daddy's going to sleep in past 6:01. Is that all right?
Your time will come.
Sure. Anyway.
I would like to know what others think about this, or if they have an idea of how to make it work better.
Yeah.
Because, when you look at ideas around that time period, you're like, that's so weak. Like they're so cute trying to do something because there was a lot less information. People had good intentions.
Yeah. Look at them trying to change the world or whatever.
But there's certain knowledge that wasn't available at that time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like night and day compared to where we're at now compared to 67.
Sure.
And for those of you that don't know, I wasn't born then, no matter what Scott says.
Christian, I'm not even, everyone knows, okay? It's been well established that you're a living vampire, and that's fine.
That's why
this is how you keep you're in disguise. You're like, oh, I don't believe in any of that stuff. But in reality, you're actually a 1,000-year-old vampire.
Pulling the strings from
your coffin and coming here and pulling mine.
Yes.
Like a ding-dong. It's fine. Anyway, yeah, whatever Christian asks you to comment that. Give ideas, You can stay after the outro if you want to hear whatever I was talking about previously.
Can I throw
the Freaky Deaky.
I'm sorry, I'm talking over you.
What? It's fine. Can we throw hands? A ball?
No, I'm not. I'm a lover, not a fighter. Actually, I'm not that either. I'm just not a fighter.
Wow. You hear that? A lot of potential there, ladies.
Oh, now I know what I was going to say.
Please.
Has any of our listeners had something they considered a premonition?
I'm willing to bet the answer is yes.
And
I think it's a lot more common than people think.
We want to hear about them because I like that kind of stuff. And like I said, I thought the Premonitions Bureau was a great book. Good story, very interesting. But
what he's trying to say is comment your premonitions.
Yeah, I want
if you've
more.
had something. And that's what they're going to do. I have a premonition right now that people are going to be flooding to their comments section to share their premonitions with us. And I like it. And I can see it in my mind's eye. Isn't it beautiful? Anyway, Christian's going to start putting together more episodes. I know people like your episodes, Christian. I don't think they've gotten one in like 3 months.
It's been a rough little bit of, nothing really bad has happened. It's just been hectic.
Well, that seems like now you're just sugarcoating it.
It's just been hectic lately, even with our little break.
Now I need to go into a full-on panic because it's over, but that's fine. So that's the end. More on that 11. That almost sounded like more on 9/11, which would be hilarious, but not even factual. It's fine. Guys, you know where to find us on social media. You know where to support the show if you'd like at thefreakydeaky.com, where you can donate your hard-earned American dollars and or other things. I'm not familiar with all the monies of the world, but you can donate whatever.
If you're in Thailand, you can send us some Thai bots.
That sounds
bats. I don't know how they say it.
Wow. So not even a well-researched response, Christian.
Actually, I worked for a hotel company, so I talk to people about it all the time, but I think it's God.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Hey, loser. Nobody cares.
Every time you play that, I'm like, is this Family Guy?
Yeah, it does have that vibe to it. No, it's fine. Guys, whatever you want to do, you can find us probably doing something similar. So go look on socials and follow us if you like. And if not, that's fine too. We'll see you after the outro for a minute where we talk about things.
Jesus.
Well, not even that. Things that I've been pondering over this 5-week hiatus. So goodbye.
Jackie Robinson.
Weird thing for me to be pondering, if I'm being honest with you.
standing by your window. Dogman is scratching at your door. Ghosties are walking up and down your halls at night, and the Hat Man is coming back for more. Your name is Christian, you love a can of beans, and you're the wettest blanket skeptic this world has ever seen. You're almost always wrong. It's quite an impressive streaky. The song has rambled on too long. Welcome to the Freaky Deaky.
What's this chunky thing swimming in my mouth?
I know. Oh, I don't even want to think about it. Dude, if he eats peanut butter pretzels and then takes a drink out of a bottle, good night.
I understand.
It is the worst. I'm like, I'll look over and I'm like, oh God, man. And then I have to like act like nothing's wrong. I'm like, nah, dude, it's cool. So anyway, what I've been thinking about things over the past 5 weeks in between deciding whether or not I wanted to even continue doing the show. There's just like, I get pulled in a lot of directions because I do enjoy doing this show, right? It's a fun show. I've always been fascinated with the paranormal stuff. Your wet blanket, it just makes sense, you know, and it's fun to do. But I also have been being pulled in different directions to where I feel like I'm being called to do certain things. And I know it doesn't make sense.
Why does that not make sense?
It doesn't make sense because if you feel like you're being called to do something, it's usually something that you don't even want to do. Like it sounds like more work, and you're just like, oh God, I don't know, I don't want to do that. That sounds like a lot, right? But it's something that you just can't shake it off or smoke it off or sleep it off. It just keeps nagging away at you. And I'm a stubborn person, so when I get that most of the time, I'm like, no, I'm sure it's fine. I don't need to do that. But the more I put it off, the more it's like, no, you definitely need to do that. And so I've been feeling that I want to touch on different things that I feel like this podcast in particular has. You get put in this box where you're like, well, this is the genre. We can't really break out of this and do anything else. And so that's what's depressing about it is I enjoy the show, but I feel like I wish it was more than just ghosts and stuff. And so that's why when we got that comment about a month ago about, you know, stop talking about the Bible, stop talking about this, blah, you know, I get this within me. I'm like, nah, this is the show though. This is what I always wanted the show to be, is actually just open discussion about stuff in general.
Why don't they complain when I talk about hockey?
That's what I'm saying is I vented about depression. I vented about being overwhelmed, about being stressed out, all kinds of things nonstop. And no one's ever been like, hey, I wish you guys would stop fucking talking about that. You know, it's never once been brought up. But when the second we start talking about religion, the people that wildly against religion will just comment and be like, you'd be so much better if you didn't talk about the Bible. It's just annoying.
Do they want us to talk about their religion, whether
their
it's
lack thereof?
Well, a lot of people that don't have religion,
it's like a religion.
They still have religion in some form or another.
The religion of atheism is,
or football or something.
Hell
like
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
and there's so many different ideas I've had for shows where I'm like, damn, I wish I had more time to do that. And the only reason I can't is because I'm full-time producing a weekly podcast, you know? And so the idea has been floated around.
First off, you're going to scare people that are really into us. We're still going to be around weekly if we do something different.
Well, all 8 to 10 of them, I'm sure, are going to be absolutely thrilled to find out that maybe there's still going to be episodes of the show. It might not be weekly. If we start something and it does a lot better than this show, we're probably going to lean into that.
Because we need to make money to do this full time.
Yes. And on top of that, most of the time, the things that take off are stuff that you're passionate about, you know, that you're knowledgeable on. You can actually give an opinion that's not just like, well, maybe it's real. Well, maybe it's not, you know, and it's just on different topics. Like ghosts are fun. Paranormal stuff is fun and great, but I like talking about other things too.
Murderers?
Sure, like true crime or whatever, you know? And so I just didn't want to be boxed into this show. Or maybe we keep this show, but we open it up to different genres. And that's why I like the people that actually stayed to listen to this, I want them to know that their opinion matters. And if they want it to stay a paranormal exclusive show, then perhaps it gets dropped to twice a month. And we make way for something that is different, that we see if other people latch onto that better.
We're not going to like all of a sudden start having episodes on fixing your car or...
It's about wild stuff. It doesn't have to be paranormal and ghosts It could be about anything crazy, like wild things that have never been explained, just crazy stuff. Or even like what you just did, where it's like weird things governments have done around the world, that isn't necessarily crazy and conspiratorial, but it's just, you're like, wait a second, what? And so that's something that I'm like, you know what? We just need to figure something out, because I want to branch out.
Well, we also, I think, want to tell stories differently, maybe in a way than we have. There's a lot of stories out there, a lot of fun things to talk about, but you're right about sometimes in the paranormal world, you're kind of stuck in a certain way.
Yeah, you're just pigeonholed. Like you can't, if you step outside of that, like we've made such an effort for this to be a paranormal show that after 5 years of doing it and realizing like there's a lot of subjects out there that aren't necessarily paranormal, but are equally as crazy that you could tap into. And I just feel like that's the smart direction for the show.
Let's do it.
Well, I just like the people that actually like listen to this part of it. I want their opinions on things, if they think that's a good idea. Or would you prefer us to do exclusively paranormal, and then we just branch off and start another podcast? And just, maybe this show goes every other week and the other one every other week. And we just see if the other one does good. If it does good, then we do both, But I don't know that. And then I've also been thinking about branding, which is something that I think about often. And it's something that I wanted to change for this podcast for a very long time, because the original design of the icon is, sure, it looks fine, but it gives zero context for what this is as a show. And so I think I might make that logo the alternate logo. And I honestly want to do cover art with this.
Yeah.
Which is if you look and sleep with the lights on, the flag that's behind me, that UFO sucking up a guy, sounds, well, I said it, with the words, the freaky deaky on or above the house. I want to do just that as the icon.
Sucking up is totally different than sucking off.
Thank you. Great. Now that we've established that. And so I was thinking about just kind of like rebranding everything, and it's going to be an absolute nightmare. But I feel like this just would draw people more.
I do like that logo.
Yeah.
I almost wore that hoodie today. I was looking at yours, I was like, we almost ended up in the same hoodie today.
Yeah. And so it's just something that it's a design that I really like, that I feel like conveys the message of the show more than the current typography one. And that's fine. You guys honestly don't even hear that. I'm just letting you know in the future, things are going to start switching over to that probably. And we'll see if that helps grow the show. So instead of giving up on the show, which is what I was planning on doing, we're deciding to try to fine tune the show. And by doing that, it's releasing us from a box that we've been kept in for 5 years and just really getting out there and talking about weird stuff, And with that, I'm sorry, occasionally we'll include the Bible. And if you're fine with that, cool. If you're not fine with that, as I mentioned in a post that most of you probably didn't see, I do not stop defending my faith, regardless of how you feel about it, how you feel about Christianity, if you were hurt by the church, any of those things. Okay, I'm sorry if you're not a fan of it, but I'm not going to stop doing it.
Well,
the subjects that we mainly focus on are of paranormal origin. So it involves of some kind spirituality, right? Some kind. So for you to be okay with us to talk about new age ideologies, and that's perfectly fine. But if we dabble into Christian ideologies, then suddenly we're bigots. Okay. And that's just stupid. That is you literally being biased against something and then saying, well, the show would be so much better if you just didn't talk about the Bible. Like, no, you are closed-minded. Listen to everything or don't listen to anything. That's the rule. It's fine. Believe whatever you want, but don't tell me to stop talking about my faith because you don't personally align with it.
Well, we're also not trying to convert anybody, so calm the hell down.
Speak for yourself. Me personally, if I converted a bunch of people, number one, I would be blown away. Okay, because I've mentioned I am not the poster child for Christianity.
Okay, I'm not trying to convert people because I don't think it matters.
I am. And if honestly, if anyone has viewed Christianity in a better light since hearing the ramblings of me, then I consider this entire podcast a success. That's how important it is to me. But that doesn't mean I have to talk about that constantly. I just bring it up if it fits within the subject we're talking about.
Yeah, I don't see us preaching.
It's not. I mean, sometimes...
And if we get ranty over all kinds of stuff. Yes. Don't judge us by one thing.
By everything. We ranted about 15 different things in the episode today.
Yeah.
And not one person is going to be like, I can't believe, well, actually, probably on YouTube. YouTube is full of assholes, just so anyone's aware. Okay. But the good people that just lurk and listen, like, I like this show.
Well, not all assholes are bad either.
Well, we all, guys, the fact of the matter is we all have assholes. And it can be us at any time. No, it
has been me before.
Yeah. This has gotten way too off the rails. I'm just saying that if people like this show only want it to be paranormal, they're probably going to be let down in the future, because I feel like the direction of the show needs to be towards opening it up.
That's
If we want to keep it exciting and we want to keep it fun and like mysterious and important, like severance workers, but it's fine.
Are the severance workers important? I'm only on episode 1. Don't tell me.
I think in episode 1, when he's talking about his work, he says it's mysterious and important, and that line is that show is filled with such great one-liners that a lot of people don't laugh at, but are absolutely hilarious, regardless. So yes, you have to open it up, change the branding around a little bit. I just want to see where it goes. And if it doesn't go anywhere within, an X amount of time, then at some point I am just going to pull the plug. If I get overwhelmed, like too overwhelmed, I'm like, you know what? It's over.
That's not anytime soon. We're going to work on some things to make sure that's not the case. But also, it's a crazy world. You never know what's going to happen.
That is true. Yes.
So don't panic. Give us some ideas on what you'd like to hear, how you'd like us to do it, what you think might work. We don't need commentary on the Bible, though. I'm the only one allowed to make that.
If it's not constructive, that's all I'm saying is if your thought isn't constructive to the conversation, then don't say it.
Well, what's funny too is I don't even remember I saw the Facebook postings recently about you talking about it and everybody else talking about it. But just because there's some bad Christians or people have done bad things in the name of Christianity, leave us alone. That's not us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not Scott. I guess I shouldn't include myself in that. But
you are a child of God, Christian. You can include yourself. If you want to feel included, go ahead.
That's fine.
There you go.
Because I agree with you on that part.
Yes.
So
yeah,
more to come.
I guess that's kind of it. And I guess we've had people want to do a religious like debate show. And I don't think it's debate, but I think I figured out what would be actually very hilarious.
Like I've told you, I don't think there's any form of debate that can be had on religion for and against. I think it's ridiculous.
I think there's no honor in you being wrong in every episode on 2 podcasts. You know what I mean?
That wouldn't be.
I would need you need to have a win sometimes. And so this show, what I think would be hilarious is I haven't gone through the entire Bible in 6-7 years or something like that, right?
What happens if somebody finds us interesting but not into the Bible?
Oh, they could just leave.
What if they like what we're saying? What if I'm able to explain things in a way that non-Christians might understand? I don't know if I could.
Are you asking me if I would appreciate you leading people away from the faith? No,
I'm not. We're not. I thought we were just. Well, you'll have to explain to me what we're talking about, because I'm not here to lead anybody anywhere on stuff like that. That's not my job. I don't care what people believe.
Sure.
As long as they're doing good stuff with their family and the people they love and not hurting people, I'm cool with whatever.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I'm sure there's things we'd be like, no, that's stupid. But you know what? In general, people can believe what they want to believe. Just don't hurt people.
I just don't think there's a podcast out there that involves not an atheist, but whatever.
I'm definitely not an atheist.
Yeah. And someone that is trying to explain it that does a horrible job. Okay. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe we shouldn't explain it. Maybe we should just discuss things.
Well, I wanted to break down certain stories and stuff like that. And I wanted to look, it's a way for me to read more.
At least on those two, on that subject, I at least understand the historical things that were going on at the time too. So that might help a little.
It might help if you have the correct information.
How would I not have the correct information?
Well, because I don't know. You say that you know these things, but I'm like, okay, but where did you get that information? Who was the source that provided that to you? Because if the source is incredible, then guess what? The information is incredible.
When it comes to history, I try to stay as credible as you possibly can.
I imagine you do. I'm just asking.
With multiple sources.
Sure.
And including sources from the time period, which is important and also hard to find sometimes.
But not impossible.
Not impossible, because there's a lot. There's plenty of things in the Bible that you can follow where it came from. And Christians have a different view of some of those things, but that's fine too. But some things did occur.
Some things did occur, Christian. That is absolutely true. But what I'm saying is, I wouldn't be against starting a podcast like that, because it's not done. It's not like the standard, this is a Christian telling you about the Bible or anything like that. And it's not just anti-Christian hate rhetoric from atheists. It's actually just a discussion about things from 2 people that probably shouldn't be teaching people about these things.
I don't know if I would ever consider myself teaching people about.
No, what I'm saying is people shouldn't learn this information from us in the same way that we shouldn't be the people covering a ghost story. It's the perspective of it.
I disagree with you to a certain extent.
Why?
Because
Oops.
we are the people that have to live in this world, and Christians have to live in the world a little bit differently. Sometimes it's okay to talk to the common man to see how they navigate that system, because sometimes the people that are trying to tell us how to live our lives never fucking live their life that way. And some of them were religious in the past. So, I mean,
understand.
it's just, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm better than anybody or I can explain things, but sometimes it's better to bring it down to the street level a little bit.
I will give you that maybe some people will relate to us doing it over scholars. At the same time, it's very dangerous.
What if it's just a journey?
Well,
it's
that's
not
how you
necessary
get away from any kind of legal trouble. It's like, yo, this was just a journey.
No,
okay?
no. You know what I'm saying? It's not about teaching.
Yeah.
Here's the best teacher you have in your life right now. It's your child.
I knew you were going to say that.
And you have to look at it that way. I don't think a lot of parents do.
Mm-hmm.
But as much as you're trying to teach him stuff,
yes,
he is teaching you a lot about yourself and what's important. And it's changing what's important in the world, or has changed.
Yes. So you want my son to manage our podcast?
Eventually, yes.
Oh.
And I think he'll be pretty damn good at it. He's pretty focused on certain things. If we can get him focused on that.
There you go.
And he already tries to act like us.
That is true.
So he'll probably, we're just doing this so he'll want to be a podcaster and he'll make us all rich.
He has said, he like that thing, like, when I get bigger, when I'm older, I podcast. When I'm older, I record. I can record. I'm like, yeah, dude, when you get older, you can record.
Also, he can have some of my gum.
Yeah.
Which
when
you
I
can't
get
have.
older, I get your gum, man. All right. Remember it. Yeah, he does that all the time. Like, yeah, buddy, when you're older. Or like now he's doing, well, when I was a baby, I loved peanut butter when I was a baby. I'm like, yeah, bro.
Just wait.
I'm like, you love peanut butter now too, man. What has changed?
Just wait for another 6 months to a year. Where were you before you were born?
It's like, well, the universe is vast. Where shall we start? No,
what's going to kill me? Well, actually,
yeah,
because he already, I don't know.
He gets that from me.
Okay.
Because he'll ask me or he'll say something. And I'm like, well, actually, it's like, especially if he's asking for a different snack. He's like, well, I had this and now I get this. I'm like, well, actually, that's not how that works. Anyway, this is a very long podcast, and after the outro, not edited. So suck on that. All right. Everyone's gonna be mad that it wasn't.
Not everybody. The people that are listening will listen to us.
If you're listening still, that means that you're probably one of the 15 to 20-ish people that are diehard fans of this show for some reason, and that is appreciated. But I just wanted to let everyone know that changes are coming. I don't know how to announce that without sounding like a dictator of some kind, but it's just for the best of the show. And so if you want to head to some greener pastures, by all means, if you want to stick around and see what that sounds like, then do that. But it needs to happen. It's needed to happen for several years now. So,
maybe not.
Years now.
I think it's part of the process. We've just learned we want to do more.
Yes. And it's impossible to do more if it doesn't pick up. And so if it doesn't pick up, you pivot. Learn that from a real estate friend of mine. Thanks, Jake. Anyway, we'll see you later. Goodbye.